Welcome back to the Dress YouTube channel. In this class we'll learn how to make this beautiful bubu dress with this collar and buttonhole loops. It's a very simple tutorial and it's beginner friendly. This is something you would like to learn. Kindly stay tuned to the end of this tutorial. Thank you. Okay, so to make this bubu dress, I have my fabric folded into 4 because I'm cutting both the front and back together, and the measurement I used in folding my fabric is my back measurement. So the back I'm working with is 7 inches, that's 14 divided by 2, and then the sleeve, where I want the sleeve to be, is like a kimono, so we're cutting the sleeve and the main bodies together, is around 10 inches. So I have 17 inches folded all together. Another way you can take this measurement is from taking your measurement from your center back, from one side of your center back all the way to where you want your sleeves to be. So you can take your measurement either ways. So now the length you're going to be working with is the full length. That's how long you want your dress to be. That's the length that you're going to need for this. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to take my neckline measurement. So my neckline width is 3 inches, and the depth for the back is 1 inch, and then the depth for the front is a bit deep. So I want it to be around 9 to 10 inches for me. So I'm going to leave it at 10 inches because I want it a bit deep. So I'm going to take my curved ruler now, and then I'll connect my back neckline, and then also I'm going to connect my front neckline. So the front neckline is a V-shaped neckline, so you can see how I'm placing my ruler, and then I'm going to connect it like this. I hope you can see this well. So the next thing, to do my shoulder slope at the other edge here, I'm going to measure 1.5 inches downwards, and then from there I'm going to connect to my neck point, which is this. I hope you can see my neck point. Okay, so from there now I'm connecting to this. Okay, so after connecting like that, I'm going to mark out my sleeve opening. So this is going to be having an elastic, so it means I'm not going to be using my exact round sleeve measurement. So the dress is going to stop around here, the sleeve is going to stop around here. So I'm taking the measurement there, and I have around 12 to 13 inches. So I'm just going to measure that 12 inches here. I'm not going to divide it. Okay, remember, ideally if you're going to be measuring your actual measurement, the 12 inches you put it on fold like this, because this is going to be on fold, and then you have 6 inches. So instead of that, I just use that. So I'm going to use elastic to gather the excess that I may have, and then from there I'm going to come inwards by 1 inch or 1.5 inches or 2 inches to create your casing for your elastic. And then from there now I'm going to connect it all the way to the hem like this. So making this is actually very simple, and that is all you need to do. So I'm going to cut this off now, then I'll cut my back neckline before I cut the front neckline. Okay, so I'm going ahead to cut this. As you can see, I've shaped the side. This is my sleeve here, this is my neckline. I've cut out my back neckline, so I'm just going to open this up now, remove the back, and then I'm going to cut out my V-shaped front neckline. So this is actually very simple. The major work there is just the buttons that we're going to be creating on the collar. So now I've cut out my front, and then I'm going to slash it open at the center front here. Remember, there's a button there, so you make sure that it is well arranged. Okay, and then I'll slash it open at the center front. So I'm going to be having 2 pieces for my front and just 1 piece for the back. Okay, so I've slashed this open now, and I have these 2 pieces. So before I start with my collar, I want to join it together so that I'll have just 1 piece. So I'll take this to the sewing machine now and join it together on the shoulder. Here I'm going to place the shoulder against each other and join it together, and then also join it on the shoulder. I'll leave the sleeve and the sleeve opening, and then from here I'm going to sew the side close also, then I'll bring it back so that we can continue. So I've gone ahead to sew it on the shoulder, as you can see, and then I also joined it on the here. So now the next thing I need to do now is to take the measurement of my neckline for the collar. So to take this measurement, I'm just going to put this on fold on the back panel and notch it, because it's going to be really long and I want to break it into two so that it's going to be easy for me to cut. So from the center back here, I'm just going to take my tape measure now and measure from here all the way to my shoulder, and then I'll go through my front neckline and then back to the opening that I have in front. So I'm measuring everything. So what I have here now, I'm just going to cut two of it for the two sides. Okay, so I'm measuring it all the way to the hem, and here I have around 55.5 inches. Okay, so that's what I have to work with for my collar. So I'm going to be cutting 55.5 inches into two by the width that you want to work with. So the width is totally up to you, but for me, I've cut my 55.5 inches now, and then the width I'm working with now is around 2.5 inches. So I'm going to be dividing this into two, assuming we are not going to be adding any loop for our button. You can just take this now, add your paper stay or collar stay or whatever it is if you want to add interfacing for this, and then from here you're going to sew it now and suspend this in between. Just sew it and then use this to cover it up, and then you have your collar like this. Okay, but because there's going to be a loop to close my buttons with, so I'll need to slash this into two so that I'm going to cut it separately. So now I hope you understand. What I have here before is 5 inches. I have 5 inches by the 55.5 that I measured on my dress. Okay, so if you're not going to be adding, just in case you're not adding any, if you're not putting button on this, you don't need to slash this into two. You just use your band like that. So the way you have it as 5 inches here, you sew it round like this, then after sewing it, you just cover it up like this, and then hem in your seam allowance now, and then you close it completely and you have something like this. But in my case, I want it to have loop like a button hole that I'm going to be creating, and it's going to come out from this center part, so which means I have to open it up on this center part so that I can add my loops. So by the time I open it up now, I'm going to be having 2.5 inches by the length that I measured. Okay, so I have my first two strip here. The next thing I'm going to do now is to take it together like this and sew it on the sewing machine. So after sewing it, this place where I have my joining is where I'm going to be placing on my center back the notch that I have here. So I'll place it like this now, and then I'm going to sew it round. Okay, so I'm going to sew it round, and after sewing it round, I'll bring it back to show us how I'm going to create my loops and then cover it up. Okay, so I've gone ahead to sew it round. As you can see, this is my neckline, and then you can see that I match my notched area against where I sew it. So I just sew it round like this, and this is what the collar is looking like now. So this is the joining that we have at the center back, and this is the neckline area for the front. This is where the neckline area stopped in front, and then this is the opening that I have in front. So now you choose the side where you want to add your loops to. Okay, so my loop is going to start from where my neckline stops, and my neckline stops around here. So you can just take it to the back to be sure, and then you mark out where the neckline stops. So my neckline stops here, stops around here, so I'm just going to mark that place, and then I'm going to start placing my loops. So you can use whatever you want for the loop. You can use the same fabric. You can cut a long strip of fabric and make it like a rope, or you use this cord, or you use your bias. So I'm going to be using this cord, so I'm going to place it like this. You can see I'm placing it like this, and then I'm going to sew depending on the size of the button that you're working with. So whatever size that you're creating, make sure that it's going to fit, your button is going to fit into this size. So this is what we want to achieve by the time we're done. You can see this. So now this is the right side of my fabric. I'm placing it like this towards the rough part so that I can easily turn it inwards by the time I'm done. So I'm just going to place my loop like this. So for me, the size that I'm going to be working with, so just bring in your button to test if it's going to work. So now once you do the first one, you can measure the length of the rope that you used. So that's going to guide you in. So I have around 2 inches here, so it means I'm going to be using 2 inches for each of my rope. And then the next thing is for you to measure the intervals that you want to have between each of your loops. So you can do 2.5 inches, 2 inches, 3 inches, depends on you. So now I'll take it to the machine and create these loops, then bring it back to show us, because this video is already long. Okay, so now I've gone ahead to add my loops, so you can see what I have here. So by the time I turn it out, this is what the loop is going to look like. So now you measure where you want your sleeve to be, that's where your loop is going to stop, and then you stop making the loops here. So now my loop is from my neckline area. My loop is just about 21.5 inches long, so you can see. So from where my neckline stops, that's my V neckline, I have my loop here. So I have about 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 loops. Okay, I have 14 loops. So the next thing I need to do now is just to cover this loop up. So how do I do this? Remember, I had 5 inches for the width of my long rope earlier, and then I slashed it into 2 to give me 2.5. So the other 2.5 inches, just like I did for this, I'm going to sew it together on the neckline area here. I'll sew it, and then I'm going to match it up like this. You can see the back neckline. So I'm going to match it up like this again, then I'm going to flip it. So let me just sew this so that it can be easier. Okay, so I've sewn it now. So now where I have my seam here, I'm just going to match it against each other now, and then I'm going to sew it round. So after sewing it round, I'm just going to use it to fold up like this. So I'll just take it to the machine so that we can take it one step at a time. I'll match this collar here against the center back here also, and then after matching it together, I'm going to sew it round. Okay, then after sewing it round, I'll bring it back to show us how I'm going to close it up. Okay, so now I've gone ahead to sew it close. As you can see, I just matched the sewn points against each other, and then I sew it. So now to cover it up, I'm just going to flip it. By the time I flip it, you can see that my loops are neat now. They are very neat, they are neatly concealed. So now I'm going to fold in my seam allowance here, and then I'll flip this over, fold in the seam allowance I have here also, and then I'm going to top stitch on it. Then I will sew this all round. So to make this easier for you, you can just take it to the ironing table and iron it first, so that it can be easy for you to close it up like this. So I'll take this to the sewing machine now and close it up neatly, so that I'm not going to be seeing all these rough edges. Then I'll bring it back to show us what this looks like. Okay, so I've gone ahead to sew it close, and you can see that it is neat. So all you just need to do now is to iron it neatly. Okay, you can see my loops now have been neatly tucked in, and then I'm going to go ahead now and give it a good press. So this side that I have here, I'll use my serger to weave it, or you just do maybe a French seam when you're sewing this. And then on the sleeve area, I'm going ahead to fold this in. So I left an opening where I'm going to pass my elastic to gather this to my actual measurements on both sides. So I'm going to do this now and take it to the mannequin so that we'll see what this looks like. Okay, so now I have added my elastic. You can see what the sleeve is looking like now. I've added my elastic to the sleeve, and this is the collar, and these are our button loops. You can see what we have here. So you just need to iron this neatly so that it can lie really flat for you and nice. And this is what the full view of the dress is looking like. I hope you enjoyed making this dress with me. If you enjoyed it, let us know in the comment section. Like, comment, and subscribe to our channel, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.